First contact. Admiral Vrax stood on the command deck of the Inevitable Conquest, flagship of the Zarthian Empire's 7th expansion fleet. His four pupil eyes narrowed as he studied the holographic display of the blue-green planet that filled the view screen. Earth, the latest target in the Empire's relentless march across the galaxy. Status report, he demanded, his voice like gravel churning in a metal drum. Commander Threll approached, her exoskeleton clicking against the polished floor. Scans complete, Admiral. The species calls themselves humans. They've achieved rudimentary space travel, but remain confined to their home system. They possess nuclear capabilities, basic satellite networks, and a small orbital station. Their military forces are fragmented into nation-states with varying technological capabilities. Vrax's mouth ridges curled into what passed for a smile among the Zarthian elite. Another primitive world ripe for the taking. The Emperor will be pleased with the resources this planet will provide. There is something unusual in their transmission patterns, Threll noted, her head tilted in the Zarthian expression of curiosity. They seem to be using significantly less of their electromagnetic spectrum than a civilization at their development stage typically would. Inefficiency. Primitives often waste potential. Vrax dismissed with a wave of his clawed hand. Deploy the fleet in standard intimidation formation. Position our warships over their major population centers. Let them witness the futility of resistance. 20 massive Zarthian warships broke formation, their sleek obsidian hulls reflecting the distant sun as they descended toward Earth's atmosphere. Each vessel was nearly 5 kilometers long, bristling with weapons capable of reducing cities to ash in seconds. Broadcast the standard ultimatum, Vrax ordered. Give them 6 hours to surrender unconditionally. In the depths of Mount Cheyenne, 12 kilometers beneath what the public knew as a decommissioned military base, General Maya Chen paced the polished floor of Earth Defense Command's Central Operations Room. Holographic displays showed the Zarthian warships positioning themselves over major cities worldwide. Right on schedule, she murmured, her calm demeanor belying the gravity of the situation. Dr. Arif Patel, Chief Science Officer of the Earth Defense Initiative, approached with a tablet displaying real-time data. The Zarthians are scanning us exactly as predicted. Their technology hasn't advanced much since we intercepted their scout ship 15 years ago. Chen nodded, and they're seeing exactly what we want them to see. For over a decade, humanity had been preparing for this day. The crashed Zarthian scout ship discovered in the Australian outback had provided Earth with both warning and opportunity. In absolute secrecy, a global coalition had formed the Earth Defense Initiative, EDI, pooling resources and the brightest minds to develop countermeasures against the inevitable invasion. Most critically, they had made a strategic decision to hide Earth's true technological advancement. Television broadcasts, satellite communications, and space programs were carefully maintained at a level that would appear primitive to outside observers. Meanwhile, the real technological development happened deep underground and within shielded facilities that were invisible to standard scans. "They're broadcasting something," announced Lieutenant Colonel Jackson from the communications station. "Patching it through now." A holographic projection appeared in the center of the command room. The alien figure stood nearly 3 meters tall, with gray-blue scaled skin and 4 pupil eyes. Its voice translated through EDI's advanced linguistic systems. "People of Earth, I am Admiral Vrax of the glorious Zarthian Empire. Your planet is now under our authority. You have 6 hours to surrender all governmental control and military assets. Resistance will result in demonstration strikes against your population centers. This is not negotiable." The message ended, leaving the command center in momentary silence. "They've sent the exact same message to 17 other worlds," Dr. Patel noted dryly. "Not very creative, are they?" General Chen turned to face the assembled command staff. Representatives from every major nation stood at attention, their faces resolute. This moment had been rehearsed countless times. "Initiate Operation Trojan Horse," she ordered. All EDI facilities maintain electromagnetic blackout. Let's show the world's governments appearing to argue and panic. The plan was already in motion. Across the globe, carefully scripted, leaked communications between world leaders showed disarray and fear. Military forces visibly scrambled, deploying outdated aircraft and ground forces in seemingly desperate and uncoordinated defense attempts. Meanwhile, deep beneath the surface and in hidden orbital positions, Earth's true defenses waited. Colonel Wei, the Chinese liaison, approached General Chen. The president has authorized full deployment of the Aegis network. All participating nations have confirmed readiness. Chen nodded. Perfect. Let's give Admiral Vrax exactly what he expects to see: a panicked, divided world on the brink of surrender. On the inevitable conquest, Vrax watched with satisfaction as Earth's militaries mobilized in what appeared to be chaotic, uncoordinated patterns. Intercepted communications revealed arguments between world leaders, some demanding immediate surrender, others calling for futile resistance. Pathetic, he muttered. They're even less organized than anticipated. Commander Threll remained less convinced. Their reaction seems predictable, Admiral. Almost too predictable. Vrax dismissed her concern with a gesture. You've grown paranoid since the Proxima campaign. Threll, these are primitives, nothing more. Their most advanced weapons couldn't penetrate our outer defensive shields. He turned to his weapons officer. Prepare a demonstration strike on one of their uninhabited areas. The northern polar region should suffice. Yes, Admiral, the weapons officer responded, inputting the targeting coordinates. As the flagship's main cannon charged, Commander Threll continued scanning Earth's electromagnetic emissions, an uneasy feeling settling in her gut. Something wasn't right. The patterns were too clean, too consistent with historical data from other conquered worlds. Almost as if. Energy weapon charging, reported the tactical officer. Ready to fire on your command. Vrax raised his hand dramatically. Fire. The inevitable conquest's main cannon released a blinding beam of energy toward Earth's Arctic region, intended to vaporize several square kilometers of ice as a demonstration of power. The beam never reached its target. Instead, a shimmering blue-white field suddenly materialized in Earth's upper atmosphere, intercepting the energy blast. Rather than dissipating, the energy seemed to spread across the previously invisible shield, rippling outward like liquid. What? Vrax leaped to his feet. Explain this immediately. Threll was already reviewing the sensor data, her movements frantic. They have a planetary shield, Admiral. Our scans didn't detect it because it wasn't active until now. Impossible. Vrax snarled. They're pre-FTL. They can't possibly. He was interrupted by the communications officer. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the planet. The main view screen shifted to show a human female in a simple gray uniform, her expression calm and measured. Admiral Vrax, I am General Maya Chen of the Earth Defense Initiative. Your demonstration has been noted and neutralized. You have severely misjudged Earth and its capabilities. We offer you one chance to withdraw your forces peacefully. Vrax's facial ridges darkened with fury. You dare to threaten the Zarthian Empire. Your deception changes nothing. All ships, full offensive barrage, overwhelmed their shields. The transmission ended. On Earth, General Chen turned to her command staff. They're reacting exactly as expected, she said coolly. Activate Aegis offensive systems. Let's show them what humanity is truly capable of. Throughout Earth's atmosphere and in concealed orbital positions, thousands of defense platforms that had appeared as ordinary satellites or space debris suddenly activated. The trap was sprung, and the Zarthian fleet was about to learn a painful lesson about underestimating humanity. The counterattack. The Zarthian fleet unleashed their full arsenal against Earth's unexpected shield. 20 warships fired simultaneously, their energy weapons illuminating space with blinding fury. The combined firepower was enough to crack the crust of most planets. On Earth's surface, civilians watched in awe as the sky blazed with light. the alien bombardment creating a spectacular aurora as it was absorbed by the planetary shield. In EDI facilities worldwide, technicians monitored power readings with intense concentration. Shield integrity at 94% and holding, reported Dr. Patel in the Mount Cheyenne Command Center. Energy absorption systems functioning perfectly. General Chen nodded, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. Begin Phase 2. Across Earth's surface and in orbit, disguised defense platforms activated. What had appeared as weather satellites, communications arrays, and even defunct space junk suddenly revealed their true nature. Thousands of weapon systems, hidden in plain sight for years, powered up simultaneously. In orbit, tiny platforms that had registered as mere debris on Zarthian scans suddenly emitted targeted pulses of energy. Each pulse was precisely calibrated to the exact frequency needed to penetrate Zarthian shields, knowledge gleaned from the recovered scout ship. Aboard the inevitable conquest, chaos erupted as alarms blared throughout the ship. "Shield breaches in multiple sectors," shouted the defense officer. "They're penetrating our defenses with targeted strikes." Vrax gripped his command chair, rage contorting his features. Impossible. How could they know our shield frequencies? Commander Threll was frantically analyzing the attack pattern. "Admiral, they're not just firing randomly. Each shot is targeting specific vulnerabilities in our shield matrix and weapon systems. It's as if they've studied our technology intimately. Launch all fighters. Target their weapons platforms," Vrax ordered. As fighter bays opened across the Zarthian fleet, Earth's defense network shifted tactics. From concealed positions in Earth's oceans, magnetic accelerator cannons activated. These weapons fired projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. Simple tungsten rods transformed into devastating kinetic weapons by their velocity. The first salvo tore through the fighter squadrons before they could fully deploy, the hypersonic projectiles leaving nothing but debris in their wake. The second salvo targeted the exposed fighter bays of the Zarthian capital ships, causing catastrophic internal damage. Fighter squadrons Alpha through Delta destroyed, reported a shell-shocked tactical officer. Bays 3 through 7 are breached and venting atmosphere. Vrax stood amidst the chaos on his bridge, his confidence shattered but his pride intact. All remaining ships regroup and concentrate fire on their magnetic launch platforms. They must have limited resources, but Earth was far from depleted. The energy absorbed from the initial Zarthian barrage had been channeled into EDI's most powerful weapon system, the Helios Array. In geosynchronous orbit, 12 satellites that had appeared as ordinary communication relays aligned into formation. Energy collected from the Zarthian attack flowed between them, building to critical levels. "Helios Array charged and ready," announced Colonel Wei. "Targeting solutions locked on all Zarthian vessels." General Chen took a deep breath. This would be the decisive moment. Fire. The Helios Array released 12 precisely coordinated energy beams that converged midway to their targets, combining into a single devastating pulse. The unified beam struck the inevitable conquest directly at its power core junction, a vulnerability known only through careful study of the captured scout ship. The massive flagship shuddered as the energy surge overwhelmed its systems. Secondary explosions cascaded through its superstructure as power conduits overloaded. 3 smaller Zarthian vessels suffered similar fates as the Helios Array fired again and again, each shot targeting critical systems with surgical precision. "How?" Vrax demanded as his bridge crumbled around him. "How could they possibly know our weaknesses so precisely?" Commander Threll, clutching a console for support as the ship lurched, finally understood. "The scout ship, Admiral. The one that went missing in this sector 15 years ago. They must have recovered it." Realization dawned on Vrax's face. The Empire had dismissed the lost scout ship as a navigation error, never considering that it might have crashed on Earth, providing the primitives with Zarthian technology to study. On the tactical display, Vrax watched in horror as half his fleet was already disabled or destroyed. The remaining ships were attempting to retreat, their engines struggling against Earth's unexpected gravitational manipulators, another technology that should have been beyond human capability. "This was a trap," he whispered. "They wanted us to attack." The ship's AI announced in an eerily calm voice, "Critical system failure imminent. Power core destabilizing." Vrax turned to Commander Threll. "Initiate surrender protocols. Now." In Mount Cheyenne, the command staff watched as white flags of energy, the universal signal of surrender in the galaxy, flashed from the remaining Zarthian ships. "They're surrendering," Colonel Jackson confirmed. 7 of their ships are completely disabled. 5 have suffered critical damage but maintain life support. The remaining 8 are functional but trapped in our gravitic fields. A cheer went up from the command staff, quickly tempered by professional restraint. The battle had lasted less than 5 minutes from the moment Earth had revealed its true capabilities. General Chen allowed herself a small smile. "Begin recovery operations. I want prisoners processed according to protocol. Technical teams will begin salvage of their vessels immediately." Dr. Patil approached, his tablet displaying the battle analytics. The Helios array performed beyond our projections. By recycling their own weapon energy against them, we achieved 43% greater effectiveness than simulated. "And casualties?" Chen asked, her voice somber. "Minimal. 3 technical staff injured when a defense platform in Indonesia took a direct hit before the shields fully deployed. No fatalities." Chen nodded, relief evident in her expression. 15 years of preparation had paid off. The deception strategy, maintaining the appearance of a primitive, pre-FTL civilization while secretly developing advanced defensive technology, had worked perfectly. On the main screen, the inevitable conquest hung lifeless in orbit, its once imposing silhouette now broken and powerless. Teams of disguised Earth ships, appearing as simple space shuttles to any distant observers, approached the disabled vessels to secure them. "What about the command ship?" Chen asked. Colonel Wei checked his display. "Life support is functioning on minimal power. Initial scans show approximately 300 survivors, including Admiral Vrax." "Perfect," Chen replied. "I think it's time we had a conversation with the Admiral about his Empire's future plans for this sector." As Earth's defense forces secured their victory, a message was transmitted across the global communication network, revealing the truth to the world's population for the first time. "People of Earth, the Zarthian threat has been neutralized. After 15 years of secrecy and preparation, the Earth Defense Initiative has successfully repelled an alien invasion force. Today marks humanity's first step into the galactic community, not as victims, but as victors." Victory and aftermath. Admiral Vrax sat rigidly in the interrogation chamber, his massive frame dwarfing the human-sized chair. His once ornate uniform was torn and discolored from smoke damage, and a medical patch covered one of his 4 eyes. Despite his situation, he maintained the rigid posture befitting a Zarthian military commander. Across the table, General Chen studied him with clinical interest. Through the one-way glass, representatives from every major Earth government watched the proceedings. "I must admit, Admiral," Chen began, "your Empire's arrogance has been remarkably beneficial to us." Vrax's mouth ridges tightened. "You deceived us." "We defended ourselves," Chen corrected, "using your own assumptions against you." She activated a holographic display showing the recovered Zarthian scout ship from 15 years earlier. "This was our first contact with your species. Not exactly a diplomatic greeting, was it? Fortunately for us, your scout was conducting a preliminary assessment of Earth as a potential conquest target." Vrax's eyes widened slightly, the Zarthian equivalent of shock. That ship was declared lost in an asteroid field. A convenient explanation that prevented anyone from looking too closely, Chen noted. The 2 crew members didn't survive the crash, but the ship's database remained largely intact. It provided us with everything: Zarthian technology, military protocols, shield frequencies, and most importantly, your Empire's expansion plans. She changed the display to show a galactic map with Zarthian territory highlighted. 17 worlds conquered in the last century, all pre-FTL civilizations, all following the same pattern: initial scans, intimidation, demonstration strikes, then full invasion. Vrax remained silent, his inner eyelids blinking rapidly, a sign of distress among his species. Once we understood your methodology, Chen continued, the counter-strategy became obvious. We needed to appear primitive while developing defenses specifically tailored to Zarthian weaknesses. Impossible. Vrax finally spoke. The technology you deployed against us is beyond what you could have developed in 15 years, even with a scout ship as reference. Dr. Patel, who had been silently observing, stepped forward. That's where you made your second mistake, Admiral. You assumed we would simply copy your technology. He smiled. Humans don't work that way. We innovate. He activated another display showing schematics of Earth's defense systems. Your energy weapons are impressive, but inefficient. We redesigned them to capture and redirect energy rather than simply generating it. Your shield technology relies on consistent frequency patterns. We developed adaptive shields that change frequencies continuously. The Helios array that disabled your flagship, Patel continued. That was inspired by a children's toy, kaleidoscopes that combine light through mirrors. We simply applied the principle on a much larger scale, using gravitational lensing to combine multiple energy beams into one focused strike. Vrax's posture had gradually slumped as the humans revealed the extent of their accomplishments. The Emperor will send another fleet when we fail to report, a larger one. General Chen's expression remained neutral. No, he won't. She changed the display once more, showing real-time footage of Earth ships surrounding the captured Zarthian vessels. While we've been talking, our technical teams have been busy. We now control your fleet's communication systems. As far as the Zarthian Empire is concerned, your mission was a complete success. Earth surrendered immediately, and you're now overseeing the initial resource extraction. You can't possibly mimic our communication protocols. Vrax objected. Dr. Patel laughed softly. Admiral, we've been intercepting and analyzing your communications for 15 years. We can replicate them perfectly. For the first time, genuine fear showed in Vrax's expression. What do you intend to do with us? Chen leaned forward. That depends on how cooperative you are. We need information, detailed information about the Zarthian Empire, its military capabilities, and most importantly, about the other species in our galactic neighborhood. She stood and walked around the table. Despite being physically smaller than the Zarthian, her presence dominated the room. You see, Admiral, humanity has no interest in remaining isolated on Earth now that we know what's waiting for us out there. But neither will we allow ourselves to become another conquered world in your empire's collection. What you're proposing is insanity. Vrax hissed. You can't hope to stand against the entire empire. We don't have to, Chen replied calmly. At least not yet. According to your own records, the nearest Zarthian outpost is 3 months' travel from Earth. We now have 20 Zarthian ships to study, reverse engineer, and improve upon. Given what we accomplished in 15 years with just one damaged scout ship, imagine what we'll achieve in 3 months with an entire fleet. Vrax fell silent, the full implications becoming clear to him. Dr. Patel added, We've already identified several critical improvements to your propulsion systems that should increase efficiency by at least 30%. Your weapons could be 40% more effective with relatively minor modifications. And that's before we begin integrating our own technological approaches, Chen continued. We've learned that Zarthian technology is impressive but fundamentally conservative. Your empire hasn't faced a serious military challenge in centuries, so innovation has stagnated. She returned to her seat. So here's what's going to happen, Admiral. You and your surviving crew will provide us with everything we need to know about the galaxy. In return, you'll be treated humanely and eventually released. And if I refuse? Vrax asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Then we'll get the information from your ship's databases instead, and you'll remain in permanent detention. The outcome for humanity remains the same. Only your personal future is at stake. After a long moment, Vrax's shoulders sagged in the universal body language of defeat. The Zarthian Empire has ruled this sector for 1,000 years. We've conquered dozens of worlds without a single defeat. Until today, Chen finished for him. 6 months later, General Chen stood on the observation deck of the Humanity's Dawn, Earth's first FTL-capable warship. Built around the salvaged core of the inevitable conquest, the vessel incorporated the best of both Zarthian and human technology, creating something greater than either could have achieved alone. Dr. Petal joined her, gazing out at the fleet being constructed in Earth orbit. The first 5 ships will be ready for deep space trials next week. Production is ahead of schedule. Chen nodded. And the diplomatic vessels. The outreach and handshake are already complete. First contact packages have been prepared for the 7 nearest non-Zarthian civilizations identified in the Empire's database. The intelligence provided by Admiral Vrax and his officers had proven invaluable. The galaxy was far more complex than humanity had imagined, with dozens of spacefaring civilizations in various stages of development. The Zarthian Empire, while powerful, was just one of several major powers, and not particularly well-liked by its neighbors. "What about our new allies?" Chen asked. Patel smiled. "The Lorandi representatives are arriving tomorrow. They seem particularly eager to establish trade agreements with us. Apparently, our reputation has spread." Word of Earth's decisive victory over the Zarthian fleet had traveled faster than expected. Several species that had suffered under Zarthian expansion had already reached out, seeking alliances with the newcomers who had accomplished what none had thought possible. Colonel Wei approached, offering a data tablet. The United Nations Security Council has approved the final charter for the Earth Defense Fleet. With the technological advancements from the Zarthian ships, we'll have 20 fully operational warships within a year. "And Admiral Vrax?" Chen inquired. "Still providing valuable intelligence," Wei confirmed. "His perspective on Zarthian psychology has been particularly useful in our diplomatic preparations." The Admiral, facing the reality of his situation, had gradually become more cooperative. The prospect of returning to the Empire as the commander who lost an entire fleet to primitives had little appeal compared to helping shape a new power that might challenge Zarthian dominance. "We should thank him," Chen mused. "His Empire's arrogance gave humanity exactly what we needed, a common threat to unite against, and the technology to defend ourselves." Through the viewport, Earth gleamed blue and green against the blackness of space. Around it, the shipyards worked ceaselessly, preparing humanity for its emergence onto the galactic stage. "We were lucky," Patel observed. "If they had sent a more cautious commander, or if we hadn't recovered that scout ship." Chen shook her head. "It wasn't luck, Arav. It was human ingenuity. Throughout our history, we've turned disadvantages into strengths. The Zarthians conquered through overwhelming force. We won through adaptability and innovation." She turned from the viewport to face her colleagues. "The galaxy thinks they know what happened here, that we defeated a Zarthian fleet against impossible odds. What they don't yet understand is that this was just the beginning." In the distance, the first wave of Earth's exploratory vessels prepared for their maiden voyages. Unlike the Zarthian ships, these weren't designed solely for conquest. They carried scientists, diplomats, and yes, soldiers, representing the full spectrum of human potential. "The Zarthians thought Earth was defenseless," Chen said softly. "Their mistake wasn't underestimating our weapons. It was underestimating our creativity, our ability to unite against a common threat, and our determination to forge our own path among the stars." As if in response, the Humanity's Dawn's engines hummed to life, preparing for its first journey beyond the solar system. The ship that had once represented the threat of conquest now symbolized humanity's promise for the future, not as conquerors like the Zarthians, but as innovators, explorers, and when necessary, formidable defenders of their place in the cosmos. The Empire had thought Earth was defenseless. They hadn't lasted 5 minutes against humanity's response, and now the galaxy would never be the same.